This is Heart Rhythm TV. I'm Roderick Tung. On today's episode, I'm so grateful to have the founding and inaugural editor-in-chief of the Heart Rhythm Journal, Doug Zipes. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
And this is a special time to have you on this, Doug, because you're the founding editor, so we want a history lesson for our members and our viewership, but also to celebrate Peng for the wonderful job that he's done as the second editor-in-chief, as right now we're closing submissions for whoever's going to be number 3, right? So we've got number 1 on today. And I know we've made Peng a viewer of Heart Rhythm TV. He's watched it. We've had him on multiple times. I'm sure he's going to be tuning in. Dr. Zipes, maybe now's your chance to just give a personalized message to Dr. Chen.
With great pleasure. Peng has done a marvelous job as an editor. Also, he followed me as head of cardiology at Indiana, where he did a great job. Peng is a consummate investigator, a wonderful basic science. His work on autonomics and other areas is truly spectacular, as well as clinical work. And he's done a marvelous job with Heart Rhythm, expanding it to more journals, obviously, but maintaining and increasing the quality of submissions, keeping the turnaround time quick, and really has just been a A+ editor. It's been a thrill for me to watch him develop and continue, I think, the outstanding journey for the Heart Rhythm Journal.
And maybe you can give us a little bit of a history lesson, Dr. Zipes, about Heart Rhythm Journal and NASPE.
Sure. So it really all begins with NASPE and the founding forefathers, a group of 4 physicians that created NASPE in the late 70s. I think it was inaugurated in 1979. They had their first scientific session in 1980 in Houston. And I was privileged to give the first plenary lecture in 1980. Sometime after that, Futura Publishing Company, who was involved with PACE, which was Cy Furman's journal, the very first electrophysiology journal, created a journal called JOE, Journal of Electrocardiography. And that was floundering. And they asked me to take it over. This was Jack Strauss and Steve Korn of Futura Publishing. And I told them I would, but I wanted to start with a brand new journal, not to take one that was not doing well. So they said, fine, and I started what was called JCE, the Journal of Cardiovascular Electrophysiology. Interestingly, I almost called it the Journal of Cardiac Electrophysiology, but I thought I would be getting some vascular electrophysiology as well, but it really never happened. In any event, it was called JCE. And I continued that, competing with NASPE and the PACE journal, and subsequently JCE became the #1 EP journal in the world, and everybody was thrilled. We had wonderful meetings, wonderful publications. Interestingly, to begin the journal and fill its pages, I went back to my mentor, Gordon Moe, and asked, he was retiring at that point, asked those people who knew him, worked with him, to send me anecdotes about Gordon. He was such an unusual and wonderful individual. So the first couple of issues of JCE are filled with stories about Gordon Moe and his interactions with all the electrophysiologists around the world. In any event, JCE did very well. And then in 1990 or thereabouts, NASPE had a reawakening, and subsequently hired James Youngblood I think around 2000, and reinvented itself with the new name, getting rid of NASP and creating the Heart Rhythm Society. Now, they approached me about having their own journal. And I said, well, JCE is doing very well. Why don't you buy it from the publisher? At that point, Futura had sold it to Wiley, and Wiley refused to sell. So Heart Rhythm Society now said, well, we'll create our own. And they established a committee who selected me to be the founding editor. Well, here I'm editing already JCE, which is the #1 EP journal in the world. And now you want me to start a brand new journal that's going to compete with the journal that I started that's already #1. And I had a lot of misgivings about that. But many friends persuaded me, and the one most influential was Gene Brownwall, with whom I was doing his textbook. And Gene said that there's no way you can turn down a society such as the Heart Rhythm Society if they're asking you to start their journal. So I gave up JCE and started Heart Rhythm in 2004, and proudly over a number of years, it became the #1 EP journal in the world, and certainly has continued with Peng replacing me after 10 years. That's also an interesting aside, because at the time, Heart Rhythm Society, I think, was content to have me continue past 10 years. But I wanted to establish a precedent that the editor only continued for 2 5-year terms. So I said, no, I really don't want to continue this. And they wisely selected Peng, who has done an absolutely marvelous job. I mean, he took a successful journal, but made it into an even greater success. And as your interview with him showed, the numbers that he cites are just off the charts. And the Heart Rhythm Journal is really, I think, the #1 EP journal in the world. Also historically, Rod, it's important to think about our society or our electrophysiology as a group. In 1989, I was on the ABIM, and they asked me to write an application to the ABMS about a possibility to have electrophysiology as a certification, which I did, and it was submitted to ABMS, which rejected the application on the basis of there was an insufficient body of cognitive knowledge to have electrophysiology have their individual certification. A subsequent submission, they obviously accepted it, and we wrote the first exam in 1990. But at that time, electrophysiology was not where it is today, and early NASP was treated as a kind of kid brother by the ACC and AHA. We were not on equal standings in the original years. Obviously, all of that has changed today, but it's fascinating to follow the history over the years.
Well, Doug, I think the other thing from a member and a reader perspective, Heart Rhythm Journal has always delivered in terms of turnaround time, right? A very expedient review process. The other thing that I personally have enjoyed is you setting the tone for really celebration of not only the clinical sciences, but the basic sciences. There's always a nice mixture of that. And I think Penn has done a wonderful job with that turnaround time. We always joke again that by the time we think about where we want to send the journal, we might as well send it to Heart Rhythm because we'll probably already get a decision.
Yeah, I tried to do that with JCE, but with Heart Rhythm as well. That the turnaround time would be in days, not in weeks. The other thing that I initiated, I think it was with JCE, but certainly with Heart Rhythm, is that we publish electronically within days of the acceptance of the manuscript. And we were among the first of Elsevier's hundreds of journals to do that, because there was a great resistance. Well, it's not been copy edited and there may be some errors and so on. But I felt it was so important for an author to see his or her manuscript in print, even electronically, within days. And I just got very upset with the months of delay between an acceptance and subsequent publication.
I agree. As an author, seeing it in press come out, the early previews is always very exciting to see it in its raw form as well. And with that, from the patriarch, from the founding editor, Dr. Zipes, thank you for joining. Thank you, Dr. Chen, for all the 10 years of incredible service and leadership for our society and the journal. Thanks again, Doug, for joining us.
Thank you.